Hello, everyone. Welcome to the King of Hearts podcast hosted by me, Chiara King. And today we have our first guest. Woo!
Oh, I'm
Yes.
so honoured.
So you are the first guest of King of Hearts podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
This is Michelle. She is the author of this book and many more, The Selfish Romantic. I've actually read this book and I actually got it signed by Michelle herself, like maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
ages
it's
ago.
crazy. And then I just DM'd you and I was like, I'd love to have you on because I really liked all your concepts. And I was like, oh my God, it would be so cool. I didn't even think you'd reply, to be honest.
I didn't even think you'd be in my DMs because I already followed you and I was like, oh, I know this name.
If you love me, let me fly away. Maybe I'll come back to you. Maybe I won't.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for writing this book as well. It's probably helped many, many women,
Honestly,
maybe men.
I find
Everyone.
it really like it's such an honor when people read your book because especially with like such short attention spans nowadays, to keep someone's attention for an entire book is a complete honor.
I mean, I'm all about dating. So for me, it's like market research. I'm just seeing what's out there. Because I was also going to write a book, which I didn't end up doing. And the reason I met you is because I was going to sign with your publisher. He gave me your book and I was like, take it. Because my book was going to be about how to heal from heartbreak.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, you know how people are like, but you know nothing about love because I was like 23 at the time. They're like, you're only 23. How can you write a book about love when you know nothing about love? And I was like, I've been through it, okay? I've had my experiences.
Trust me, I was a 21-year-old life coach. Can you imagine the number of people who are like, how can you be a life coach at 21? And I was like, because I'm qualified. That's why. You don't go to a doctor and ask how they can be qualified because the qualifications is what qualifies me, not my life experience.
Yeah.
It's why a life coach can help you through divorce, even if they've not had a divorce. Why a life coach can help you through chronic illness, even if they don't have that illness. You don't need to have experienced it to be able to talk about it.
Exactly. Age is just a number. And I think, especially talking about relationships and stuff, sometimes I find it really hard to express myself because it's like, I feel like I don't have a place to say anything.
You know, the most ironic thing about that book is I got that book deal 8 years, on my 8th year of being single. And then I ended up getting in a relationship 2 weeks after getting the book deal. And I had to call up my editor, was like, hey, really sorry. I know it's meant to be a single girl's guide to dating. I'm not single anymore.
Oh, shit.
And then, so as I was writing the book, the writing of the book maybe takes about 8 months.
Yeah.
I was in a brand new relationship. Like, okay, I've not been in a long-term relationship. The chances of this person staying in my life. And it's funny because that was my third book. And when I wrote my first book, I was actually dating someone. And I ended up removing it from my memoir, which is my first book, because an author said to me, unless you're willing to talk about that guy for the rest of your life, don't include it.
Yeah.
So at the last moment, I removed every mention of him. And about a month after the book came out, we broke up anyway, and it was the perfect thing. So to write an entire chapter about the guy who thankfully is still my boyfriend.
So you have a boyfriend?
I still have a boyfriend, the same guy I wrote about in that book. The book ends with a chapter about how to make a relationship work, because by the time I finished writing that book, we had been together about a year, a bit longer than that, and we've now been together for 3 years. We live together.
Wow.
and we're very
that's
happy.
Crazy. I'm like, I want to be like you. Like I've been dating my boyfriend for like nearly a year. So it's been 10 months, but it's my first healthy relationship. And like, you know, sometimes you just want to like self-sabotage, and every part of me, as much as like I love him so much and he's like the best, every part of me just wants to like run away because I'm so used to having that up and down, that toxic, that like in and out, that I don't know what's happening with us, and it just such like a whirlwind. And now it's so stable and so like healthy, and I'm like, is this what it's supposed to be like?
Well, I think we don't talk enough about getting into your first healthy relationship after a string of unhealthy ones, which definitely this is my experience as well. I mean, I had 8 years of being single that I loved, but I was openly dating. I wasn't really exclusive with anyone. But the last time I was in a relationship was a toxic one. And what you realize when you get into your healthy relationship is that when you're in toxic relationships, you're never the bad guy. So being in a healthy relationship for the first time, I had to realize, oh, sometimes I actually am in the wrong. And that can be really confronting when you realize,
Especially when you have an ego and you just like,
and I have a habit of starting fights as well. And that was really confronting to realize, oh, actually, I am the problem sometimes in this relationship. And that's what it should be.
drama. Yeah.
In a healthy relationship, it should be 50-50.
Yeah.
And you bring your own baggage into your relationship.
No one's perfect.
No one's perfect. But when you're in a toxic relationship, it's so easy to blame them for everything that it's so easy to not look in the mirror and look at yourself. Whereas a healthy relationship will make you confront all of your part of the problems.
I think that's what's also been really uncomfortable being in a healthy relationship is like, it's made me look at my flaws a lot more. You know, a lot of the time I'm like, I don't think I'm even good enough for him because he's so perfect and I'm this devil and I'm awful and why would he want to be with me? I'm such a bad person. And like, I don't know, it's just made me really look at like difficult things within myself, which I have found really uncomfortable. And I have a life coach too. And she's basically, we did this exercise where I have to hold my demon, my like bad side in my hand and give it attention and love because all it wants is attention and love and it wants to be acknowledged.
And also sometimes if you've been in a toxic relationship, you think your method to get attention is to actually be that problem. So then you push them away so they can be like, oh yeah, I told you I'm no good. I'm not worth it. And just because you make mistakes in a relationship doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're just human.
Yeah.
And it is normal to make mistakes in a relationship. But also if you've not got a good blueprint of what a healthy relationship looks like,
I have no idea.
There are so many other aspects of a healthy relationship that like took me off guard. Like, for example, the boredom. There is boredom in healthy relationships because in unhealthy relationships, there's chaos and intensity.
Anxiety.
And if that's your norm, then you're going to search for that in your next relationship. And if it's not there, you'll create it.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And I think this really links in well to our controversial quote of the day because it's kind of surrounding this like not being bored at all ever, which we have a real issue with in today's society. So today's controversial quote of the week is dating today is like shopping fast fashion. What do you think about that quote?
I think it largely comes from dating apps, and dating apps get given a lot of stick because it's quite superficial. It's very much gamified as well, and I think the creators
I didn't even think of that, honestly.
Creators
it's like
of
a game.
dating apps have actually designed it to keep our attention in the same way that social media is designed to keep us hooked. Dating apps do the same. And that's where we have to make sure that we're being conscious about the decisions we're making. We're not being too judgmental on profiles because, as I say in my book, my boyfriend had the worst dating profile. It was the only thing he read in the book and was like, you didn't need to write that. And I was like, no, I really did have to write that because it was so true. If I looked at it twice, I probably wouldn't have gone on a date with him.
You just swiped right.
So
he had swipe left or right? Which one's
right?
Swipe right is
so
good.
I swipe quite quickly. I'm more selective when I decide to go on the date. The reason why I was cautious around his dating profile is because he had a photo in sunglasses that turns out he was 15 years old in that photo. He was looking off in the distance. He had a group photo. He had 2 photos making funny faces, and all the photos look so different that I actually called the restaurant and checked to find out his last name because my boyfriend doesn't have social media. I couldn't find him anywhere. And I usually I don't do a social media stalk to try to like find everything out. I'm not that kind of person, but I do it on a safety perspective of like, just check they are who they say they are. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't even find a LinkedIn profile because he doesn't even have LinkedIn. He thinks that's social media too.
My boyfriend doesn't have social media
either. So I called the restaurant and I was like, hi, there's a reservation at 7:00 for, I don't say his name publicly, but I was like, yeah, could you just remind me what the surname is? And I was like, can you spell that for me? Because he has a funny surname. And I was like, then I took his surname and went online. I was like, still can't find anything of this guy. I genuinely was like, is he going to look like his photos?
He knew what you looked like.
He knew what I looked like, but all his photos look so different. Yeah. I didn't know whether I would recognize him. And what's funny is when we met, he was walking on the other side of the street. I still did not recognize him, but
he recognized you.
He recognized me, but not yet. I saw him first and was like, oh, that guy's cute. I wish I was going on a date with that guy. Carried on walking.
No.
And then he was like, wait, are you wearing a purple dress? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, wait, that is the guy.
No way.
So at least I knew I was attracted to him.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I found personally, like when I've been dating, I have also been a victim of getting bored really easily.
Mm.
I think because also social media doesn't help, because the grass is always greener,
Yeah.
and like there's always a better option out there. And like dating nowadays, even my friends, it's like, you find one thing wrong with someone and you're just like, oh yeah, okay, they're not great. I'll find someone else. But then you never actually establish a proper relationship with anyone.
Yeah.
It's like jack of all trades, master of none.
So I think it's the cancel culture, but on an individual level, where you cancel anyone at the first mistake. And realistically, humans
Yeah.
are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's actually a strategy to never let anyone get close to you. Because if you're always pointing out red flag, you're not looking inwards. And
Yeah.
everyone is going to have a red flag, including you, including
Definitely
me.
including me.
And
yeah.
if people judged you on the first time you made a mistake, you're also going to judge yourself when you make mistakes. And I think that's the greatest problem I'm seeing. Too many times we're using these pop psychology terms like gaslighting, toxic, but we don't understand what they mean. That's why I have a whole chapter actually taking those words and explaining what they mean, but also that you can't just pinpoint all the flaws in anyone else and not look inwards.
Yeah,
And
it's
a lot of
true.
the time, especially because it's so superficial on dating apps, when we actually think about, oh, how can I improve my dating life? The first thing we jump to is aesthetics. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z procedure
And then someone will love me.
and then someone will love me, but also I'll increase my number of matches. Great, you've got a greater amount of matches. But if you still can't hold a conversation, get into a
Yeah.
conflict, have good communication skills, have the ability to apologize, are you working on all those skills too? Because that will improve your love life a lot faster than losing 10 pounds.
But also, I was the skinniest I ever was when I was a teenager because I obviously social media came around and I developed this like eating disorder. So I just didn't eat. I lost my period for 4 years. Like I didn't have a period. That time I was in my best shape I'd ever been, but it was also the most insecure I'd ever been. So really, it doesn't actually matter how you look on the outside. It's how you feel about yourself on the inside. And like confidence really does emanate and is the most attractive thing you can hold is that confidence.
You know, I used to be even more private about my love life. And the reason why I started talking about it online is because I found there wasn't enough positive representation of plus size people dating. And everyone thinks that if you are my size, you have a horrible dating life. And obviously I'd been single for 8 years. I was going on like 3-4 dates with different guys every week. I was having the best time. And I was like, why is everyone telling me that I should be going on dates and being body shamed when literally not a single guy has mentioned my weight? Because I
who
weed
is
them
saying
out.
that? That's the thing.
And also, if I go on an app and the first thing they say to me on a dating app is like something about me being curvy, you're gone. Because there are warning signs before you get to a first date that someone's only interested in certain reason. And once I was actually on the date, no one actually was body shaming. I was having great experiences. And I think it's just we feed this idea that you have to look a certain way in order to be dateable. And the reality is that even if you are thin, there are going to be points in your life where you gain weight. There are going to be points in your life where you get pregnant, for example. But also, if you are long-term in a relationship, you are going to go through so much worse than weight gain. You are going to go through potentially infertility, job loss, grief, the loss of your parents. If they can't stay with you for the gaining of 5 pounds, then good luck actually staying for the difficulties that come in life.
Well, yeah, it's their loss completely.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be, this is my fear, is like, you know, obviously I really care about how I look. And I think deep inside me, I've always been slightly insecure and always needed the validation of others, especially men, to make me feel whole. And like recently, I've been trying to work on getting that validation from within myself, but that I do have that subconscious fear if I gain weight or like if I, you know, get old and get wrinkles and ugly, this guy that I'm with is going to just drop me for someone younger and prettier and hotter. But then it's like the other part of me is thinking, well, do I even want to be with someone who would drop me at the first moment? I'm not this young, hot, you know, successful girl.
No, and I think also, especially if you right now fit the beauty ideal, the thing I would say to look at is how they talk about other women, because it might not be about you right now, but I've been watching Love is Blind lately.
Love is Blind.
The way they talk about other women is very telling. So just because you're not plus size right now, or just because you're not disabled right now, it could happen to you. And if you want someone long term, I always say their attraction to you can't be fragile. Within my first year of our relationship, I had the worst health I'd ever had. I'd had a very complicated medical childhood where I've had 15 surgeries when I was younger. I have surgery scars all over my body. And I used to be really insecure about dating because I'm covered in surgery scars. And there was a point in my life I thought it was deceptive to take off my top and not talk about my surgery scars until I've taken my top off. But obviously it's a difficult conversation to have. And so what would end up happening in my teenage years is I would like blurt it out 2 seconds before I would take my top off. Like, oh, just warning, I've had 15 surgeries, a brain tumor, puncture, intestinal obstructive valve, like genuinely like that. And people would look at me like how you're looking at me right now. And I'd be like, okay, let's have sex now. And it didn't work because I was insecure about it. I made a big deal about it. And then I just one day was like, what if I don't mention it and see if guys notice? And I mean, there are pictures on the internet, but my surgery scars are not small. It looks like a game of noughts and crosses. And guys did not mention it. No one mentioned it. And no one cared about it as much as I cared about it. But the reality is that my first year of being in a long-term relationship, I went through so many brain scans, neurosurgeon appointments, and my boyfriend was there throughout all of it. And it was things like him coming home to me where I was crying in the shower after a neurosurgeon appointment and things like that, where I was like, this man is going to see me in all forms of life, when I'm crying, when I'm drunk, like after an eye surgery appointment where I literally can't like open my eyes. If his attraction to me is so fragile that like a little bit of weight gain or me getting a new scar is going to change that, I don't want him anyway. And so actually being able to show that vulnerable side, and I think because I used to be quite hyper independent, actually letting him come to the doctor's appointments with me, actually being able to hold me afterwards when I was like crying and upset, letting someone in like that, I realized I actually never really gave any guy before that a shot because I wasn't opening up and letting them be there for me.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it really does have to start from you. Like if you're actually, you can go on a million dates, but if you're not ready to open up to someone, you're going to keep going on another million dates until you are ready to open up to someone.
And you're going to find flaws that don't exist. I think you can create a problem if you want a problem, but if you're not ready for a relationship.
And if you're scared
and I
of
think
commitment.
You know what?
Which a lot of us are.
I wish a lot more people in their 20s just embraced actually being single and choosing being single.
Yeah.
So I consciously was single for 5 years. I did not want a relationship, and I actually just embraced non-exclusively dating people. And of course there were some guys who had issues with that, but then it got to a point where some of them said, you have to choose either me or I'm going. And I was like, okay. At some points I actually chose those guys, and I was like, I'm dating 3 other guys, and they knew that from the get-go. I was always very transparent. And then there was one guy after 3 dates was like, I can't do this non-exclusive thing. We're either exclusive or not. So I was like, okay. And I dumped the other 2 guys. I think when you do grow up plus size and you grow up with chronic illnesses, you get painted this idea that anyone who would be with you is a saint. Like, oh my God, he's such a great guy. He's with you through all of your surgeries, all of that. That I didn't realize, like, I always got fed this line, beggars can't be choosers. And so when I was finally like dating multiple guys at the same time, I'm like, not only do I get to choose, but I should have always chosen. I shouldn't have just settled for anyone who liked me.
I think because we're, especially even as a woman, just accept what you're given. And like, that's good. Like, that's the bare minimum. Like, accept that, enjoy that, and be grateful for that, and don't let it go.
Well, you know why?
You won't get better.
I think because so many dating apps are framed as how to be a dateable woman, as opposed to what is this man doing to impress you. And so you're going on to dates trying to be the most appeasable, like acceptable version of yourself, rather than just being yourself and let people be repelled by that. So I changed a lot of my dating profile to actually be like, what will turn people off? And I was like, the fact I'm opinionated, the fact that I'm emotional, the fact I want deep conversations, that I'm emotionally intelligent. And people show themselves out. So like when I had that on my profile, the number of guys who would be like, emotional intelligence, is that like IQ? And I was like, if you don't know what the word means, then we're not the right fit. But you want your dating profile to repel people, and if it's not doing that, putting this stuff like,
also you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to put on this like general persona and then also changing yourself to fit the other person, and then one day your personality is going to show.
But that's what dating books encourage all the time. It sends this message of like, just be a really dateable, easygoing girl, get the official label of girlfriend, and then you can be yourself. But then that person ends up feeling deceived. Like, who the hell is this person? That's not who I've been dating for months. And then you've both
even be years.
Time. Yeah, years.
It could even be after getting married. Like, people change after getting married.
That's actually why a lot of reasons people get married and then they end up divorced a year later, even though they're in a 7-year, 10-year relationship,
Yeah.
is because that man fit the values they wanted in their love life, but not in their family life. And the moment that man changes from boyfriend to husband, they're suddenly in their family values, not in their love life values anymore. And just because someone meets your love life values doesn't mean they meet your family values.
Yeah.
We're just going to take a pause there and we'll be back after this break.
I went to this comedy show last night by Daniel Sloss. He's like this amazing comedian, but he actually talks about really deep topics. And there was this one topic that he spoke about in one of his Netflix like episodes, and it's about a jigsaw puzzle. He went to his dad when he was like 7 years old, and he said to his dad, he's like, "What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of life? I want to know the meaning of life. I just want to know." And his dad says to him, and he's like, "Life is like a jigsaw puzzle. And in order to fill in that jigsaw puzzle, you have to have experience. So with all the experiences that you have, you fill in those pieces of the puzzle in order to paint that picture better, because you don't know what the hell you're painting a picture with the picture of the puzzle not even being there, because you're painting your own life. So there's 4 corners. You have to start from the 4 corners of the jigsaw puzzle. One is your friends, one is your family, one is your hobbies and interests, and the other one is your job." And he says to his dad, "But how do you like fill in the middle?" And he's like, "Well, the middle is your partner and the love of your life." And he had a real issue with that, because he was like, I don't get it, because he had been single for like years and years and years as well. And he was like, why does that center of my puzzle need to be someone else? Why can't that center of my puzzle be my own love for myself? And other little bits, why does it have to be this perfect partner? And at the end of the day, there is no perfect partner.
And I think also it's this message that your partner is your other half.
Yeah,
And that you're
I hear
not
that all
whole
the time.
without. I mean, it's even the idea that being single is just a waiting room for getting into a relationship. That single is a problem to be fixed. And we hear it all the time, because if you go to a party single, they're like, "Oh, I can't believe you're still single. Are you too picky?"
Yeah, but
and
it's even worse in like the Middle East, for example. My boyfriend's Turkish, and in Turkey, it's like really, I've never seen anything like it. Like if you're not in a relationship, there's something wrong with you.
So I'm Chinese and I'm Jewish, and both those sides as well. Those cultures, they don't have any boundaries in terms of asking about your love life. And in China, it's a lot. Well, Hong Kong, it's much more about your size, and it's like it's because you're too big. On the Jewish side, I tend to get more, is it because you're too picky, you two have too high standards? But either way, when you say you're single, you're not actually stating a problem, but other people are perceiving it as a problem to be fixed. And actually, I don't think there is a problem about being picky. Of course, there's too picky when you're nitpicking, but there's a difference between being picky and nitpicking. And nitpicking is finding a problem that doesn't exist. I use the example of Chandler breaking up with someone because her toe's too big, or her like that part in Friends. But I think
It's like any excuse basically to break up.
Any excuse, and also reasons that don't really affect you. But I think you're right, there isn't a perfect person, but it's much more about, it's funny because in The Selfish Romantic, I talk about a story where I was drunk on a train and I'd just come off a date with my ex-boyfriend, and I knew we had to break up. And my ex-boyfriend said to this random guy on the platform, "Can you just make sure she gets back to Bristol okay?" I was going from Bath to Bristol, which is like an 11-minute train journey. And so this random man was looking after me on the train, and he had just come off a date. It was like, "Oh, I need to break up with my boyfriend." And like this complete stranger, we're just sat there. I was like 19 years old at the time. We're both sat there being like, "We need to break up with our boyfriends. My boyfriend's awful." This older woman stands up and it's like, "I've been overhearing your conversation, and just like as an older woman, can I give you a piece of advice? If this man does not make you better, then you need to dump him. And also, if you do not see the good before you see the bad in him, then that's not the relationship for you." And those 2 questions, to this day, thank God I remember things when I'm drunk, because to this day, I use that as a barometer of whether I'm in the right relationship or not. And it's so true, because you're not ever going to be perfect people, but you should be better with each other. You should bring out the good in each other.
Yeah.
And by the time you've got to the point where you are only seeing negative in each other, that's a relationship that's already over.
Well, that's the thing. In my current relationship, like I honestly can't complain. Like I want to complain. I want to be like, there's something wrong with you and we need to break up. I want to do that because I want to self-sabotage because I like at any opportunity, I'm like, okay, no, but this is too good to be true. Like, is this it? Is this the end of my life? And I freak out and I'm like, is this the person I'm going to be with forever? Like, fuck, let me just fuck that up real quick so that I can just like, I'm never going to be single again. And I even spoke to him about this. It's not like I'm speaking about this for the first time. I said to him, I was like, being with you, you're so amazing. And there's so much good about you. And he makes me a better person. He's so understanding. He's always so positive. He's just like amazing. I literally can't complain. But I said to him, I was like, so I don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And that scares me.
So I think there is too much emphasis put
Pressure.
on. Well, there's emphasis put on you should know.
Yeah,
like,
you should know from the
How many
beginning.
people are like, oh, did you know from the first date? And I'm
Everyone
like,
says that. They're
I
like,
did not.
but I have friends being like, oh, you know, when I met him, like I knew he was the one. And I'm like,
But I think that is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
minority. I
know.
truly believe that's minority. And I think we freak ourselves out by trying to project into the future. You don't need to
that's
know
true.
whether you're going to end up together forever. But I think the main thing I tell anyone in your position is there is no rush. If you're going to break up, there's no rush. If you're going to stay together, there is no rush. You get to
Yeah.
take your time to make a decision. And the reason why I say this to other people is because I said this to myself. For the whole first year of our relationship, I was like, no, because otherwise I need to decide, otherwise I'm leading him on. And I had to realize
yeah,
that you're
same.
not leading him on if you're still unsure yourself. You're only leading him on if you're sure you want to break up and you're not doing it. We need to allow ourselves the time to actually make a decision, get to know a person.
Yeah.
But this illusion that did you know from the first date? It's only really painted that way in hindsight. But the funny thing is I actually have a voice note after the first date that I went on with my boyfriend, and I found it a couple of months ago. And it was me saying, he's lovely, he's kind, he's funny, he's interesting. I don't know where this is going to go, but
You made a voice note.
well, I voice noted my friend. So I was single for 8 years.
Okay,
All
okay.
my friends lived for my dating story.
Okay,
So I
love
would go on
that.
a date and I
They
would
wanna hear
send
the tea.
seven voice notes after. But I actually think I said something like, I think he's like this with all the girls though, so I'm not taking it personally. But I didn't know we were going to end up together. I just knew that he
Yeah.
was interesting, he was funny, he was
Yeah.
a kind, caring guy. And I didn't know. And it's okay. And I didn't know for the whole we've been together for 3 years. And I still have days where I don't know. And I talk to him about it and I share with him my worries and I share with him my anxieties. We have a healthy adult conversation about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time he actually says to me, you know, Michelle, some days I actually miss being single too. But we now always joke with each other because we both loved being single.
Yeah.
And we both say we love being single. We just love each other more. And as a result, we don't have very strong boundaries around flirting. We know we're going home with each other. We have a huge amount of trust that I don't really care who he's talking to at a party. In fact, when we go to a party, we go separate ways and we feel like it's a night off from each other. And then we come back together at the
Especially
end of the
when
night
you
and
live
catch up.
together.
Especially that, and living together, that was probably the time when I thought we were going to break up the most. Moving in with someone after I'd lived alone
Yeah.
for 5 years. I lived alone through
You love your space, right?
And I was alone for all 3 lockdowns. So I had been,
Wow.
if I was good at
You got
being alone
tested.
before, I was so good at being alone
Yeah.
by the time we met. And I wasn't used to someone in my space. He ended up moving in with me because I had my apartment and he was between places. So he moved in with me and we fought so much. And it was only when we went away for Christmas and for 5 weeks we didn't fight that I went, oh, we don't have relationship issues. We just have housemate issues. And we'd gone from fighting every day for 3 weeks to then suddenly no fights.
Oh my God,
And
I would have just walked out the door. Like, that's what I would have done. I'm like, okay, bye.
But I think that's where I couldn't figure it out for a long time. And for the 3 weeks, I was like, we're arguing so much. It was only when we got that space where we were like, wait, when it's just us two, because we went to go visit his family and my family for Christmas, we didn't fight. And I was like, to separate it out as housemate issues, you're always going to have issues. I mean, if you ever lived with a friend, living with a friend is
Oh,
the
I couldn't-
fastest way to break a friendship.
Yeah, I couldn't. I live on my own as well, and I try to avoid living with friends just because I don't want to break up a friendship. And
Yeah.
I don't live with my boyfriend. In fact, we live in different freaking continents, you know. But I am finding that a little bit difficult at the moment. I'm not gonna lie.
I think if you've come from a toxic relationship, though, that's probably how you feel safest. I think to
Yeah,
have that level of distance,
with the distance, yeah.
it means you can actually softly acclimatize to being in a relationship when that's not your norm.
But I've always been in long distance relationships. I don't know what it is. I think it's like,
Do you want the truth?
yeah,
Long distance relationships are not for all, but for if you consistently get into long distance relationships.
Consistently. Since I was like 19.
It's because it's easier to have emotional unavailability when you have distance because you only have to be available. So emotionally distanced is also physically distanced. So then you only have to be on for a certain amount of time. And the reason why I know that is because I was always in long distance relationships.
Yeah, because like, honestly, I feel like living in the same city as my boyfriend. I did it with one boyfriend for like 3 months and it was just too much for me. We would see each other every day and then it got boring and then you end up watching Netflix together all the time and sitting on the couch all day. And I was like, I don't want this.
But I think then you need to learn how to set boundaries being in the same city,
I
not
know.
using physical distance as a reason to set. It's basically automatic boundaries as opposed to doing the hard work of setting boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I quite like sitting in my comfort of being in long distance because also when you're with them, it's like, it's amazing. And you also still get those like butterflies and like those highs, but then it's not a real relationship. It's not like
The giveaway word in what you just said was highs. Because the reality is if you're in a healthy relationship, it's not meant to be highs and lows. You said highs, but there are lows that come with those highs. And it's still that roller coaster.
it's the not being with them and missing them. That's the low.
Yeah.
It's not the low of like arguing though. It's more a low of like, I don't know when I'm next going to see him again. And that kind of gives me like a little kick of like, when are we going to see each other, you know?
But also there can be more intensity in long distance because when you leave, if you're not okay with leaving each other, some people do start a fight before they leave to make that distance easier and the separation easier.
Yeah, I've done that. At the beginning of when we got in a relationship, I made some argument the day before I left because he booked a reservation at a dinner restaurant and it wasn't the one that I wanted.
Yeah.
Like, how pathetic. Like, what?
I mean, I did it and I wasn't even in a long distance relationship. I did it on our first holiday together because it was a perfect holiday and the holiday was so perfect and I didn't want to go home the next day. And so I didn't realize I was doing it until I got home. And then I spoke to my life coach. She was like, you started a fight because you didn't want to go home. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, was that what it was about?
But when it feels too perfect for me, I'm like, there's something wrong. Like, I've had holidays
That's
with
the
my
part
boyfriend.
you need to that's coming from your toxic relationships.
Yeah.
But also that you deserve to be loved and you deserve to be loved in a healthy way. Because part of the reason why you're creating that chaos is because you
In
don't
my head,
feel
though.
safe. Yeah.
I'm creating that chaos, not even in an argument, though. I'm creating that chaos in my mind. And then my mind kind of spirals. Like, we had Valentine's Day. We went to Cappadocia and it was amazing. But on the last night, I was like, fuck, that was so great. Like, what? There must be something like wrong. You know, there must be something wrong that like everything's just feeling really calm. And I had this really, it wasn't a difficult chat with him, but like on our last night, instead of having sex, really like TMI, but we didn't. And like, he was like, I just want to sit. I feel like there's something on your mind. Like, let's just like sit and talk. And I was just like, yeah, I have this fear. I think I have this deep fear of commitment. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like I'm just scared that, you know, I have to, it's like a serious decision that I have to make. I don't want to hurt anyone. And like, you know, what happens if we're not together forever? And what happens if I make this decision that we are going to be together? It's like I put so much pressure on myself. And that scares me and makes me want to run away.
But I think the fact you're vocalizing it is a really positive step. Because if you say internally that's how fights happen, the fact you vocalize it means that the other person knows what's on your mind. If you can figure out what would reassure you, that would also benefit him.
He reassured me by saying, if we break up tomorrow, and if that's really what you want, I'm not here to trap you in a relationship, because I also have this fear of feeling trapped in a relationship, like feeling stuck in a relationship, not being able to like, I'm not feeling free to do what I want.
That's the part of you that likes long distance.
Yeah.
Because you can get intimacy in safe doses because you get your hit when you're there and then you get your space to retreat. But you can actually create that in the same country. It just takes stronger boundaries. So for example, I'm not the person in a relationship who's like that. My boyfriend is. But he has nights where literally like he wants me to basically be in another room and he'll be like, tonight's my night, I get the living room. And like, he just needs a night to be alone. And then tomorrow, like he actually did it on Friday. And then on Saturday, we played a whole day of board games together, because that's my favorite thing, because he was like, oh, thanks for giving me my space for a
Yeah,
night.
maybe I do need my space. Like I always thought like I need to be constantly with that person, but I don't think I
But it doesn't need
do.
to be so extreme. So that's
Yeah.
where, like, he got a whole night in the living room where he got the TV for himself. I didn't walk into the living room once. I stayed in the bedroom all night. I did my own thing. I even some nights I just go out so that he can have his space. But we can still exist in a relationship. We just don't need to be on top of each other. But I
Yeah.
think it comes down to this thing of it's never one big decision. I understand this is the romantic story that is portrayed in the media, but in reality, in my relationship, it was a bunch of small decisions. It was a bunch of times where he's shown up, always being a calm, gentle guy, being a balancing person for me of my like roller coaster, because even as a human, I'm a roller coaster person. Like I'm high
too.
emotions, high
Same.
intensity, high reactions, everything. And
Yeah.
he balances that. And so I don't know if I can even find a day or a time when I was like, no, this is for life. It was just every day choosing that, rather than like, this is my person forever. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it and see how long. And especially for the first year, all I had to keep telling myself is, I'm just going to enjoy it for as long as it lasts.
Yeah, I think I need to do that as well, just because like I really put this pressure on myself.
You're
of, like,
preempting the breakup.
yeah, I'm literally like, when are we gonna break up? Like, not that I want to break up, but it's like
You're protecting yourself.
I'm protecting my emotions, and I'm protecting maybe one day we're not gonna be together, and I feel sad about that. But it's like I almost make that happen by like manifesting it, by like thinking about it, by like
But also, if you do ever break up, it's going to fucking hurt. And you thinking about it for the year before you do
yeah.
is not going to preempt that heartbreak. You're going to have the abilities to deal with it when it happens, but you thinking about it ahead of time and worrying about it is not going to make that heartbreak any softer. So you might as well enjoy it for while you're in it.
Shit. That's the thing. Like, I don't want to hurt. I don't want to feel pain. I felt pain in the past. And obviously entering
And
a
you
new
survived it.
relationship. Yeah, I survived it, but it left me with a lot of scars, you know? And like,
But you're dragging those scars forward.
yeah,
And so
I'm still healing from those scars. My own boyfriend, and I know you said like I was single for 5 years and like I did my own development and whatever. I did my healing for a bit, but I actually believe that like he also healed me.
oh yeah, 100%. I think that's
I thought
underrated.
I had to be on my own to like heal.
No. And I think that narrative is very prevalent in our society right now. And actually, I was very much healed by being in my relationship. I learned a lot in my 5 years. I needed my 5 years to be ready for him to turn up in my life, because I actually think if I'd even met him 2 years before, I would have pushed him away. So I did have to do my own work. But when he turned up, to be known that deeply and be loved that way healed so many of my scars from my last relationship.
Yeah.
But the fact is, if this is not the relationship you end up in, you are going to be able to heal from it. It won't be fun. It won't be an enjoyable experience, but you are capable of that.
Yeah.
You've shown yourself you are capable of that, but preempting it is just creating more hurt.
I know, it's literally like self-sabotaging myself when it's like literally the best relationship I've ever been in. So thank you so much
Thanks for having me on.
talking to me and also giving me advice about my relationship, because I always need advice.
I think we've all been there as well.
Yeah, knowing that you've been in a toxic relationship and now in a healthy relationship, and understanding that everyone has their doubts at the beginning because we don't know how to be loved properly.
And you don't have an
It's like-
accurate compass.
Yeah, because like toxic is all I knew. And now it's like a new way of being in a relationship. And I'm like, whoa.
You're
this is
learning how to
different.
trust yourself. And it's a hard journey, but it's
Yeah.
a good journey to be on.
Yeah. And like sometimes I have voices in my head and I'm like, oh, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. And like, as I said to you, my gut feeling's like, no, this isn't right. But my gut feeling has not always been right. You know?
And you don't know if it's your gut feeling or if it's fear inside you talking.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry, this was a long one, but I hope you got something from this. If you are in a healthy relationship or in a toxic relationship and you don't know how to navigate it, I hope this gave you some sort of guidance. And if you want to read The Selfish Romantic by Michelle and know more about dating and setting your own boundaries in relationships, then give that a go. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Maybe I won't.